And so we can begin from there, if you will.
In the state of complete ignorance.
Radical ignorance, it's called. When you fully understand how little you understand. When you actually see from moment to moment that everything is a mystery that simply has arisen before your mind, because you didn't build it. Look at it, did I build this?
Right.
But it's deeper than that. It's what Free John talked about, and then you get that implication from Zen as well. When you empty yourself completely, as much as you possibly can, what you will be left with, according to Husserl, you'll be left with an ability to judge a thing to be whatever it is.
Objectivity.
It's a form of objectivity. So if I am totally devoid of all the rest of the structures of my consciousness, all the intellectual understanding, all the emotional life that's gone into programming, all that, if all that's gone, and I have a pure baby's eye, and I no longer have the baby's eye. The baby sees what? It sees color and mass and all that. But I recognize that for what that is, according to Husserl. Zen says no, and Berkeley says no. There's nothing there, nothing in the consciousness, nothing. Berkeley says God informs consciousness with all this interplay of ideas. God is creating all this illusion. Well, of course, you can't get free of it anyway, and it still hurts when it lands on you.
Wouldn't if there was no separation from you and the object, wouldn't that be omnipotence?
I don't know if I want to call it that. But you're obviously pointing at something transcendent, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that you probably have an experience such as what what I spoke about the other day with Lewis. You would experience a dissolution of the separateness, and in that process you would lose the alienation from it, and you would embrace it as your extended body.
Right.
And then all kinds of things happen when you do that. If you're in the woods and you've done some kind of mushroom or something like that, they call it a love drug, because it has a tendency to do that with people. It suspends all the negativity, and it allows the infantile brain to flourish and flow. And one sees the world through eyes that are like that of an infant. So there's no separation, just a kind of love of the whole thing, because it's you yourself. The self is not some separative bubble. It's not yet formed that way. And so you can go back to that, and you can also have that same experience as I did when I got rebirthed, completely harmless. You know about it, rebirthing? It consists of a fire breathing that is maintained with the help of a guide. A guide will be there, and you just go through it. And when I went through it, all I felt was gratitude, great gratitude, and a kind of deep happiness, indefinable. And also during that time, I was listening to a recording of Turiya Singh's, and it was a recording of John Coltrane's wife, his widow, Alice Coltrane, who became like a high mystical, highly disciplined meditation, fasting, all kinds of things that she went through. And she was singing these fundamental chants. I still have that music. You would benefit from hearing it. It is the most amazing music, because under the conditions where I lived at that moment, I could not hear any distance between her chanting to God and God. The God was in the chanting. That's how that's the best way I can to describe it. And that was simply a matter of deep breathing, fire breathing for a while. I don't, more than a half an hour. And you just keep the person in the breath. And that's it. When the person stops, and you will stop breathing, and you just oxygenate yourself so much. You don't need it. You're totally high. But then you get pushed. You're pushed to do more and more. So a lot of cleansing goes on. The brain becomes oxygenated so much.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that has been shown through the Wim Hof method. That it's possible to really manipulate your systems through breathing, through deep breathing.
Yeah.
Science is starting to show that now. Really interesting stuff.
I did it 4 times with the woman, then I three times on my own, and then one time I had quite an extraordinary vision, and this anagogic vision. It was brighter and more substantial than anything I see in this world. And there was no off. That's what I've always noticed. I've had a few like breathing visions or meditation, but just something pop into the mind, a picture, but it would always be anagogic, meaning, when we see it's on, off, right? That's how these things, these are cameras, aren't they?
Right.
They're rapidly taking pictures, but there's an off.
Right.
In these anagogics, there's no off. That's why they're so bright,
Right.
so rich, and you see them so beautifully, so different.
This is in your mind's eye.
Yeah, it's the third eye that sees. And I mean, I've had the experience, so I'm not going to deny it, and I'm not going to say, oh, it's just some brain chemistry. Fine. Guaranteed there's a brain chemistry involved in it.
Of course.
Guaranteed.
Chemistry in anything.
Yeah, but so what? That's the genie's out of the bottle.
It doesn't explain the experience.
Yeah, the consciousness itself cannot be reduced to anything in the material world. You can say it comes, as I do, it comes out of the vibration of the brain. Consciousness to me is like, if you look at the brain and you realize that it doesn't really have clear boundaries if you look at it closely, because all this energy pouring off it, and then suddenly there are thoughts. Right. And they come right out of the brain, and they too are made out of physicality, in my opinion.
On that level too, in terms of like physical things, you go down to a quantum level of physical, and you can't. I suppose I have no idea, but you can't really differentiate between one object and another because everything looks the same at a quantum level.
I don't know. Maybe you're right. But all kinds of anomalies at that level.
Right.
Lots and lots of anomalies. And many of them to do with a kind of communication. One subatomic particle, one electron, doing this over here, and it's making its mate do something over in Caltech.
Right.
And then they interchange, and one disappears, and the other one appears, and they play games with you. And your act of observation, maybe it's in the act of observation. Maybe they are just still in their own way. I think they just, basically, I just see them as everything is vibrations.
Right.
They're all tiny vibrations and big vibrations. And it's amazing. It's just energy. We're looking at energy at that level. So
I know people have discussed that since that documentary too.
Why does this vibration that we call thought produce a sense of understanding? Is it valid to think you understand something because it resonates in you? So then, when you go through the whole process of eliminating all the things that you understand, you think you understand, then you get down to the very nature of the thing that's doing the process. And that's when you start doing the real work. I mean, if you have to spend time to throw things out the window of understanding, I think I understand this. Yes, I understand that roof. I understand its function. But do I understand its true material nature? It doesn't look like subatomic world to me. It doesn't look like atomic fire. It's greenish and gray and kind of ugly. It's made out of asphalt, right? Wow, it's so strange how we are trapped at our own level with this material. I don't want to call this a matrix, but it's like it's a big swim. It's a big material swim, and we're at that level with it. We're made out of the same stuff.
Yeah.
That's why when Superman asked his father why he didn't escape, somebody asked him why he didn't leave the planet with the kid. He said they were just as much part of the planet. I think that was basically the answer. We're not separate from the planet. He didn't say it quite that way, but that's it. And I understand that. I mean, you and I, we're like fungi, right?
Right.
We just came right up from ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Of course, we grow right out of the ground.
It's I kind of look at it on a level too, as you see an obstacle or an obstruction or a cataclysmic event happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you run away from it. Why? Why do you run away from it?
I don't like pain.
Right. Right. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to run towards it.
But what are you implying?
Well, he stayed.
Oh, okay.
Like, accepted his destiny, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you kind of accept the suffering.
What else are you going to do? I mean, if you don't accept the suffering, you basically complain about it all the time.
Right.
That's your way of saying, I don't accept it.
Right.
This is the shit is basically what you're saying.
Right.
And a lot of us are into that. I saw Joe Rogan talking briefly about how he stays away from negative people. They bring him down. And we all take blows. He said, I've been knocked down 100 times, he says.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but
he was a kickboxing champion. So.
Yeah, right, I'm sure. But I don't think he's only talking about that.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about just life in general. We all take it.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, you're going to get you.
Right.
If you don't get it, you're just building up bad karma because it's waiting for you somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So he's talking about the people.
Yeah, you just want to stay away from negative people.
Right.
Don't complain. And it's true.
Yep.
You don't complain.
Yep. Yeah, there's a episode of Jocko podcast where he's talking about that too. He said he's reading off this terrible letter of some tragic event that had happened. He said, just remind me never to complain again. You know, comparing your situation to a situation that could be significantly worse. I guess just, finding gratitude in the moment is the thing that allows you to be somewhat free of the suffering of the moment. It's like the gateway, the breath is the gateway to the moment, and you can start with appreciating existence itself.
That sounds like as good a way as any. I don't say that that's the only way, but I think you essentially have to come to some psychological equilibrium, homeostasis. It's got to be balanced in you so that you can handle life, all the imbalances of life, right, with a kind of equanimity. I'm using redundancy right here, but basically that's it. You're like the guy on the pole.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to balance yourself and maybe keep walking while you're on the pole and you know what's below you. It scares the hell out of you too. You don't want to fall.
Right. Before we started this too, we were talking about that, an attachment, that edge, walking that edge. I was trying to conceptualize it as it's like a dichotomy where you, on one side, if you are so attached to something that you grasp it so firmly, you try to control every aspect of it and it slips through your fingers like the wind, right? And then on the other end, it's like if you have no grasp, no feet on the ground whatsoever, head completely in the clouds, you're going to float off into the nothingness because there's no purpose in any of it. So you used to describe it as building a sandcastle. It's like, why not enjoy building the sandcastle, right? And that's a concept for life. It's like, enjoy the moment of doing the thing that you are inclined to do and just follow the momentum of whatever it is you are inclined to do, provided you are not inclined to kill someone.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And most people have some kind of great talent.